Welcome to Old Coin History, your gateway to the hidden wealth of the past. This channel reveals valuable old coins where a single rare piece can be worth millions of dollars. Such discoveries can turn collectors and coin lovers into millionaires. We uncover history, rare mint errors, legendary coins, and secret treasures that attract every YouTube viewer and ignite curiosity, passion, and excitement for coin collecting worldwide. Hidden among ordinary pocket change, the 1944 United States 5-cent war nickel stands as one of America's most fascinating treasures. Certain ultra-rare error strikes and flawless high-grade examples have stunned collectors, selling for enormous prices and proving this small silver coin can transform an ordinary collector into a millionaire. The 1944 United States 5-cent coin is most commonly known as the 1944 Jefferson nickel, because it features the portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States, on the obverse front and his Virginia home Monticello on the reverse back. The Jefferson nickel design was first introduced in 1938, replacing the earlier Buffalo nickel, and it was designed by Felix Schlag, a European-born sculptor whose work emphasized realism and classical composition. The year 1944 was in the midst of World War II, a global conflict in which the United States was deeply engaged following the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. Because metals like nickel and copper were critical for producing weapons, vehicles, armor plating, and other war materials, the U.S. government directed the U.S. Mint to change the metal composition of the 5-cent coin for the duration of the war. Before 1942, nickels were made of 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving the coin its name, nickel. But beginning in October 1942 and continuing through 1945, the mint produced what numismatists call war nickels, with a completely different alloy because nickel metal was needed for the war effort and could not be used in circulating coinage. The goal was to save critical metals for defense production, and experts estimate that the change in composition saved hundreds of tons of nickel and copper for wartime use. The wartime nickel alloy used for the 1944 5-cent coin was 56% copper, 35% silver, and 9% manganese. This alloy was chosen because it matched the required weight and electrical resistance needed for vending machines and coin-operated devices. It also ensured that the coins could still be accepted by machines calibrated for earlier nickels. Because of this 35% silver content, the war nickels are the only U.S. nickel coins in history that contain silver, making them distinct from all other 5-cent pieces before and after this period. Unlike earlier nickels, which normally did not have a mint mark on coins produced at the Philadelphia Mint, the wartime silver nickels did carry mint marks that were much larger and prominently placed on the reverse, above the Monticello building, so that the new composition would be easily identifiable and so they could be recalled and melted if necessary. Philadelphia pieces used the letter P, Denver used D, and San Francisco used S, and the large mint mark was unique at the time. Before this era, it was rare for Philadelphia coins to have a mint mark, so the 1944 nickel is historically important in that regard as well. The obverse design of the 1944 Jefferson nickel shows a left-facing profile of Thomas Jefferson, with the inscriptions, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the date, 1944. Jefferson is shown in classical portrait form, with his hair tied and wearing attire appropriate to the late 18th century. The reverse shows Monticello, Jefferson's famous Virginia home, with the inscriptions, Monticello, 5 cents, United States of America, and E pluribus unum. In 1944, a large number of these wartime silver nickels were struck because nickel was still needed for war, and ordinary nickels could not be produced. The Philadelphia Mint struck about 119,150,000 of these coins in 1944, making it a common date for the series. The Denver Mint struck about 32,309,000, and the San Francisco Mint struck around 21,640,000, numbers that reflect mass production for circulation. Because of the high mintages, 1944 war nickels are frequently encountered by collectors and hobbyists, but their historical significance is very high because they are direct artifacts of the United States industrial mobilization during World War II. In everyday circulation through the late 1940s and beyond, many of these coins were used as normal money and gradually wore down. However, as coin collecting became more widespread in the second half of the 20th century, many collectors began seeking these war nickels specifically for their unique composition. From a material value perspective, because they contain 35% silver, the intrinsic metal value, called melt value, of these coins is often higher than their face value, especially when silver prices rise. However, most coins you find in pocket change or circulated grades are often only worth slightly above face value unless they are in very high condition, rare mint conditions, or rare varieties. The collectible value of a 1944 nickel depends heavily on condition, mint mark, and specific varieties. Most circulated examples, those that show wear and are graded by collectors as good, fine, or very fine, might be worth a few dollars, often in the range of $1 to $10 or slightly more depending on silver content and condition. Coins in uncirculated condition, meaning they have never been used in commerce and show no wear, can command higher prices. Examples graded by professional services in brilliant uncirculated grades MS-60 to Mississippi 65 can sell from $20 to several $100s. In auction records, some exceptionally well-preserved 1944 nickels, especially those with full steps, a collector term describing fully defined steps on Monticello's design, have sold for several $1,000s or more, particularly in the highest graded examples like Mississippi 68 or Mississippi 69. There are also error and variety coins that are especially prized. Because mint workers hand-punched the large mint marks onto dies, there were repunched mint mark errors, where the letter appears doubled or misaligned, as well as off-center strikes or other production anomalies. These errors can range in value from modest premiums over normal examples to much higher prices for dramatic or rare errors. One extremely rare and highly valuable category, though not specific to regular 1944 wartime nickels but an example of war-era mint error, includes coins struck on wrong metal planchettes, such as a 1944 nickel struck on a zinc-coated steel planchette meant for cents. In auctions, such error coins have been offered with values reaching tens of thousands of dollars because they are so unusual and historically interesting. Beyond its metal and collectible value, the 1944 nickel holds educational importance because it reflects how wartime policy affected everyday life, even pocket change, and demonstrates how the U.S. government adapted civic infrastructure to support national mobilization. After World War II ended in 1945, the mint returned the nickel to its pre-war composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel in 1946, once the need for conserving these metals ended. The 1944 nickel series is thus a distinct and finite chapter in U.S. coinage history, lasting only a few years and representing the only circulating nickel coinage in U.S. history that truly contained silver. In summary, the 1944 5-cent Jefferson nickel is not just a small coin worth 5 cents of face value, it is a piece of historical art, material science, wartime policy, and collectible significance. Its unique silver alloy, mass production during a global conflict, interesting mintmark placement, and potential collector and rare error value make it an enduring and fascinating topic for numismatists, coin collectors, and history enthusiasts alike. The 1943 United States 5-cent coin, officially known as the Jefferson nickel, is one of the most historically important coins ever produced by the U.S. Mint because it was struck during the height of World War II, a time when America had to completely reorganize its economy, industry, and even its coinage system to support the war effort. The Jefferson nickel design itself had been in use since 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel, and was created by sculptor Felix Schlag, whose design was chosen through a national competition. On the obverse of the 1943 nickel appears a left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States and principal author of the Declaration of Independence, symbolizing liberty, democracy, and American ideals at a moment when those values were under threat worldwide. The inscriptions, "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date, 1943, appear on the front, while the reverse features Monticello, Jefferson's historic Virginia home, along with the inscriptions, "United States of America," "E Pluribus Unum," and 5 cents. The year 1943 was especially critical because the United States was fully engaged in World War II, fighting on multiple fronts in Europe and the Pacific. Strategic metals such as nickel and copper were urgently needed to manufacture tanks, aircraft engines, weapons, ammunition, and military equipment. Nickel, in particular, was essential for producing armor plating and stainless steel alloys. As a result, the U.S. government ordered the mint to remove nickel metal from 5-cent coins, leading to one of the most dramatic composition changes in U.S. coinage history. This decision marked the birth of what collectors now call the war nickels. The 1943 5-cent coin was made from a special wartime alloy consisting of 56% copper, 35% silver, and 9% manganese, making it the only U.S. nickel ever intended for circulation that contains silver. This composition allowed the mint to conserve nickel metal while still producing a coin that would function properly in vending machines and coin-operated devices. The inclusion of 35% silver gives the 1943 nickel intrinsic precious metal value, which is one of the key reasons collectors and investors are attracted to it today. Because silver prices fluctuate, the melt value of a 1943 war nickel often exceeds its face value, even in worn condition. To clearly distinguish these wartime silver nickels from regular copper nickel coins, the mint introduced a large mint mark placed above Monticello on the reverse, something never done before for nickels. This also marked the first time in U.S. history that the Philadelphia Mint used a P mint mark on circulating coinage. In 1943, 3 mints produced 5-cent coins: Philadelphia P, Denver D, and San Francisco S, and all 3 used the oversized mint mark above the dome of Monticello. This feature alone makes the 1943 nickel immediately recognizable and historically significant. In terms of production, the 1943 nickel was struck in massive quantities because coins were still needed for daily commerce despite the war. Philadelphia produced over 271 million coins, Denver struck approximately 15 million, and San Francisco produced around 104 million. These large numbers mean that standard circulated examples are relatively common, but condition plays a huge role in value. Most coins were heavily used during wartime, resulting in wear, scratches, and loss of detail. As a result, high-grade uncirculated examples are far scarcer than raw mintage figures suggest. From a collector's perspective, the details on Monticello's steps are extremely important. Coins that show full steps, where all steps leading up to Monticello are fully visible and sharply struck, are much rarer and command substantial premiums. A 1943 nickel with full steps in top mint state grades has sold for thousands of dollars at auction, especially when certified by professional grading services. The value of a 1943 5-cent coin varies widely depending on mint mark, condition, strike quality, and errors. In heavily circulated condition, a typical 1943 war nickel may be worth a few dollars due to its silver content. In uncirculated condition, values can range from tens to hundreds of dollars, while high-grade full steps examples can reach 4-figure prices. Exceptional specimens graded Mississippi 67 or higher are rare and highly sought after. Error coins make the 1943 nickel even more fascinating. Because wartime production was rushed and metal shortages created unusual working conditions, several mint errors occurred. These include off-center strikes, double dies, lamination errors, and repunched mint marks. Some of the most famous and valuable errors involve wrong planchette strikes, where a 1943 nickel was accidentally struck on a planchette intended for another coin. Such errors are extremely rare and can sell for tens of thousands of dollars, depending on condition and authenticity. Beyond its monetary value, the 1943 5-cent coin is a powerful historical artifact. It represents how deeply World War II affected everyday American life, even the coins people carried in their pockets. Every 1943 war nickel tells a story of sacrifice, industrial adaptation, and national unity. After the war ended in 1945, the mint returned to the traditional 75% copper and 25% nickel composition in 1946, making the wartime silver nickels a short but unforgettable chapter in U.S. numismatic history. In conclusion, the 1943 United States 5-cent coin is far more than a small denomination. It is a symbol of wartime innovation, a unique silver-bearing coin, a favorite among collectors, and in rare cases, a life-changing treasure. Whether valued for its history, material composition, collector appeal, or rare error potential, the 1943 war nickel remains one of the most important and fascinating coins ever produced by the United States of America. Please like and subscribe to my channel.